What do you think of when you hear the word war? Is it this or maybe this? Well, there's a different type of war you may have heard a lot about in the past 2 years, and it is a trade war. Respected sir and teacher, a very good morning. Myself Mahatkar Taskin Nazim from SYBSCGS, and I'm here to present my FC project on the COVID-19 and the US-China trade war. Wars are fight with weapons. Then what about the weapon of this war? So the weapon of a trade war are present everywhere. It is the food you eat, the train you ride to your work, or the mobile or laptop you're probably watching this video on. As a consumer, you're probably consuming imports. If we have a trade war and we start slapping tariffs on all of those imports, the bill is going to be higher. If the world relies so much on trade, then what is a trade war? So the answer is a trade war is an economic conflict resulting from extreme protectionism in which states raise or create tariffs or other trade barriers against each other in response to the trade barrier created by the other party. In simple words, it is like giving economic pain to the other party. This ongoing US-China trade war that have started on July 2018 has been the largest of this kind in the global market. This on-again, off-again war has been the feature of Donald Trump presidency. It all began with the imposition of tariffs by US on China with the goal of forcing it to make changes to what US says are unfair trade practices. Moving ahead, let's talk about some important historical aspects related to US-China trading relations. It is a saying, knowing history is important to improve future. At first, we all know that both United States and China are the world's two largest economy. The US has largest nominal GDP, whereas China has largest GDP in terms of purchasing power parity. Both the nations so far have been the important pillar for the global economy. By 1984, the US had become China's third largest trading partner, whereas China became US 14th largest. After the September 11 attack in 2001, US President George Bush visited China. At that time, the China offered a strong public support for war on terror. It was President Bush who advocated for China's entry into the World Trade Organization. Now let's talk about the admission of China into the World Trade Organization and the conflict that began after it. This photo you're watching is of China's signing ceremony that was held on 11 November 2001 in Doha, Qatar. After the agreement of ministerial conference, the China became the member of WTO. Following this, the actual conflict between US and China began. As a new member, China did cut tariffs on imports, but nonetheless it continued to steal American intellectual property and forced American companies for transferring the technology to access Chinese market. All these acts were violation of WTO rules. Due to such bad trade practices of China, the US trade deficit with China increased. In 2017, the US trade deficit with China was $336 billion. All these disagreements led to a long-term economic conflict between US and China. Next, let's talk about the origin of US-China trade war. In April 2018, President Donald Trump unveiled a list of over 1,000 Chinese products that he planned to put tariffs on, as a way to punish Beijing for restricting US investment in China and for stealing American intellectual property. The very next day, China struck back, unveiling its own list of US goods that he planned to put tariffs on. Since then, Trump threatened another round of tariffs, with China ready to respond with its own additional tariffs. that whole situation started to look a lot like a trade war. On 19th of June 2018, China accused US, stating that United States had launched a trade war. Finally, on 6th July 2018, American tariffs of $34 billion on the Chinese goods came into effect. After that, China imposed retaliatory tariffs of a similar value on the US goods. That was followed by a series of tariffs and retaliatory tariffs imposed by both the nations on one another's goods, and thus the US-China trade war began. On 15th of July 2020, US and China signed a historic and enforceable agreement on a Phase 1 trade deal. In this agreement, China committed to import $200 billion of US goods and services over next year and remove some tariffs from various US goods, whereas United States agreed to suspend an additional 15% of tariffs to be imposed on $162 billion of Chinese goods and also reduce some newly imposed duties. However, the outbreak of COVID-19 in the China affected some of these equations. In in November 2019, the coronavirus disease outbreaks in China. It was first identified in December 2019 and resulted in an ongoing pandemic. While everyone was busy looking at the numbers of COVID-19 across the world, other stuff was happening in the US-China trade war. In the month of March, President Donald Trump tweeted, US will help the industries that are particularly affected by the Chinese virus. After that, both the nations are busy in a nasty war of words. After the mid-March, the COVID-19 cases increased rapidly in the United States. On 20th of March 2020, the USTR announced it would work with US Department of Human and Health Services, to ensure that the critical medicines and essential medical products uh, were not subject to additional Section 301 tariffs. By the end of March, the coronavirus pandemic worsened in the United States. Hence, the USTR prioritized the review related to the review of exclusion requests related to the medical products, resulting in a new exclusion for some essential medical products like PPE, that is personal protective equipment, as the demand for these products soared. From imposing tariffs and retaliatory tariffs to the exemption or exclusion of tariffs in the wake of COVID-19, the US-China trade war now moving towards another episode. Speculations are made that this whole scene of US-China trade war will soon change in a new war that might be called a tech Cold War. Now let's talk about the benefits that India will gain from this trade tension. When it comes to India, there is no direct impact of this trade war. On the contrary, for India, it is a great opportunity. As we know that China is the global manufacturing hub, but after the entire scene of the COVID-19, the world, for at least for some time, would be cautious to trade with China for all the practical reason. I know there will be no significant shift uh, of manufacturing from China, as shifting manufacturing is not an overnight job. But speculations are made that there will be a shift in a few areas in India, and if India take even 5% advantage of this, it will be a great opportunity for our nation. Now, I'd like to conclude by saying the situations of trade war happens due to the power play of the nations. The desire to have control on other might be a possible reason. In case of US-China trade war, the US insecurity for countries domestic is the main reason that we call protectionism. Also, China's bad trade practices plays a major role in igniting this trade war. This trade war negatively impacted both the countries' economies. But for especially for United States, it is a more pain than gain situation. But it is a saying every coin has two faces. There are hopes that India will be benefited from these trade tension. It is like a ray of hope for the Indian economy. In the end, I would like to say, in times of great adversities or stress, it is better to keep busy, to plow your anger and energy into something positive. Stay positive, stay safe. Thank you.